You are listening to Dear Texas Radio, a program of Dear Texas Read and sponsored by Texas Authors Incorporated. If you would like to ask today's guest author a question, please do so on Twitter using the hashtag Dear Texas Radio. However, not all questions will be answered during the show. Now sit back and enjoy listening to today's show and learn about a Texas author and their books.
And welcome to Dear Texas Radio. This is your host, B. Allen Bourgeois. And for those of you who have heard me before on the show, we encourage you to sit back, relax, pick up a great book, and just enjoy a good Texas read. However, when you go to drop everything and read, don't break anything. We don't want you to do that. But we do want you to sit back and enjoy a great story by a Texas author. And to help you find one, we have with us today Jan Sikes, who's written a collection of books that we'll be talking about throughout the show. Welcome, Jan.
Oh, thank you, Alan. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. You are an award-winning author on multiple levels, and we will go into more detail about your other books, but your newest one, which is called Discovery, is considered to be a poetry and art book. What does that actually mean?
Well, what it actually means is that there is a combination of poetry and pen and ink drawings throughout the book, and the drawings are, of course, the art part, and they're a little bit unique in that I call them pen and ink drawings, but the actual official art name for them is pointillism because they are made up of millions of tiny, tiny little dots. And so throughout the book, there is artwork that goes along with a certain group of poems or a subject of that section.
Okay, so how does this differ than just a normal poetry book? Is it because it has a unique, is there something
well,
more?
there's really and to me, there's a couple of things that sets it apart from just an ordinary, everyday poetry book, in that the entire book was created behind the walls of Leavenworth Prison, and to me, that makes it different. Almost historic in a way, because the writer, which was my late husband, Rick Sikes, had many years in prison, and he made up his mind at one point, about 3 years into a very long sentence, that he was going to think, and do only positive things in a very negative place. And so one way that he did that was through writing. And so he wrote these poems. He did this artwork. He wrote hundreds of songs, probably 300 or more, while he was behind bars. And so his way of keeping positive was to be creative. And so this book is a product of that creativity and that way of dealing with a very negative situation. So you'll find everything in the poetry book, from sadness, loneliness, grief, to philosophical subjects, to absolute off-the-wall crazy humor, because it was whatever hit that day was what got written down. So to me, that is what makes it different from any other poetry book, just the fact that it was created behind the walls of prison.
Mm-hmm. Somewhere I thought I read that you had some poetry in there as well.
I do. You know, when I decided to publish this book, because he passed away, I wanted his name on the book because he created it. But in order for me to publish it, I wanted my name to be on it too. So I have written poetry for years and years, and I pulled out my poetry and added them to the back of the book. that way it really is a combination of Rick and Jan Sikes poetry.
And this clearly, I mean, it was written over a long period of time, because if I remember correctly, your husband was in prison in the 70s, and here we are 40, 50 years later practically. So why the long term before, getting them published?
Well, when he got out of prison in 1985, and the focus and the intention at that point was simply to rebuild a life. And so artistic things, creative things other than building and making a home kind of got put on the back burner. And the same thing with his music. He was a lifetime singer-songwriter, musician, and all of that got put on the back burner. His guitar was under the bed for years, and he did not play music. He didn't write. He built. And because that was what he was driven to do. It was almost like trying to make up for lost time. So anyway, long story short, in 2001, he went back to the music and did it quite differently the second time around, and got that creative vein going again with the music. But then he passed away in 2009, and I honestly, this poetry book just sat in a file. It was in a file in the file cabinet, and until I finished the 4 books telling the story, I didn't even consider publishing. So that was why it took so long to get this book out, because it wasn't anything that really seemed to be a priority for me. After he passed away, the priority was telling the story. And then after I was done with that, then I thought, this is a beautiful book. It needs to be shared with the world. So I published it last year.
Okay. And do you by chance have anything handy that you can read to the listeners?
I do. The blurb on the back of the book is really kind of describes the whole thing when it says it's breaths of life from a prison cell, from within a prison cell, and it talks about his life as he knew it was stripped away, and he was left with no freedom except what was in his mind. And so the very first poem in the book was very inspired by a vision or a dream, or I don't know what you would call it, but it was an epiphany for him. It was a turning point, and it was called Discovery. It really is quite long, so I don't know if you want me to read it, but I would be happy to, because to me it's a really special poem. It's not pages long; it's 1 page. So if you want, I'll read the title. The poem that the book is titled after is called Discovery.
Please.
Says, through life's wilderness I wandered, aimlessly seeking my way, seldom looking up to see the light of day, stumbling blindly till so weary I could go no more. In total exhaustion I fell to the earthen floor. My eyes focused upon a wounded but lovely thing, seemingly an angel felled with a broken wing. Said I, stranger, what will be your name? A voice spoke softly, yours, for our names are the same. I replied angrily, that cannot be. In understanding, the voice spoke again, look and you shall see. What song do you sing? I asked as I drew nearer. Your song, my friend, listen and you shall hear. You know me, said I, as the sweet melody began to flow. From the very first, the voice whispered, yes, you I know. You are fantasy, you are imagination, and you are not real. Patiently the voice said in a soft tone, satisfy your doubt, touch and feel. I shouted, you are the death angel that has come to take me away. No, I am faith and compassion, left behind yesterday. I replied, when others are worthy, why did a wretch like me you select? The gentle voice asked, who is the being my eyes reflect? In the kind, loving eyes sparkled an image of me, not the hopeless, cast-out soul I thought myself to be. The Spirit smiled and said, I saw your need and I came. Respectfully I ask, how can you help me when you yourself are lame? Truth, but my wound does not exceed your own. My friend, together we shall mend and then travel on. Walking slowly and cautiously, gradually regaining our strength. In confidence and with patience, our stride will soon reach full length. For in peace, love, and understanding you shall stay. In your heart I will dwell, no matter how hard the way. Leaving behind the dark wilderness where lost I had been, to tread upon a sure path that is lit from within. So again, this poem came from a vision. It came from a real experience that happened to him. He had been placed in solitary confinement for, I don't even remember what. They thought he was trying to escape, or there was a plot or a plan to escape or whatever. Anyway, he was in solitary confinement, and he was very ill. And as he lay in this cell, which solitary confinement means exactly that. You're totally isolated, and there is no interaction with anyone for as long as you're there, which he didn't ever mind that. In fact, he always said he kind of liked solitary because it was quiet and he could think and he could write. And but this vision happened in that situation, and then he wrote about it. And he said that was the point where he realized that no matter how far down you are, if you have the desire and the will, you can crawl up, you can climb up out of whatever pit you have fallen into. And so that was the inspiration. And from that point on, he just stayed very, very busy, immersed in artwork. He did oil paintings. He did Indian beadwork. He worked with leather. He made ceramics. He wrote. He stayed busy. And that was his way. Was his way of maintaining sanity and keeping something positive going, because it is a very negative place to be.
Definitely it is. And with that, we're going to take a break, and we will listen to our sponsors, and we'll come back, and we'll talk about your other books just shortly.
Okay.
Living under a theocracy is tough enough, but out of nowhere, a secret mission threatens everything in a common soldier's life. Now Salvik must do all he can to protect his people and the woman he loves. The Gray Blade by Aaron Ward is the first in the God Swords series, available at your favorite bookstore or at books.txauthors.com. Longtime developmental editor Susan Malone fosters writers' innate talents to help them become successfully published authors. Over 50 Malone-edited books have sold to traditional publishers. Her authors' books win major literary awards, reach the bestsellers list, and become films. She offers in-depth, personalized editing and coaching to turn your manuscript into a successful published book. To learn more about Susan Malone's services, please visit maloneeditorial.com.
Love to read? Love to meet authors in person? Then check out bookfestival.network to find a book festival in your region of Texas. We are adding book festival events throughout the year, so sign up to get notices and even a coupon towards purchase of a Texas author's book. Sign up at bookfestival.network. Texas Authors is accepting entries into their 6th annual book contest. Go to books.txauthors.com and sign up. Contest is valid for Texas authors only and is open to anyone 18 years of age and older who published a book during the 2017 calendar year. Enter at books.txauthors.com today. Attention students in grades 6 through 12. Do you love to write? Texas Authors Institute of History is kicking off its first statewide short story contest for students. It's free to enter and a great way to begin your career in writing. Sign up at shortstory.texasauthors.institute for complete rules. Again, to enter, go to shortstory.texasauthors.institute. You can win cash prizes and an opportunity to be published. Hello, Texas authors. My name is Randy James, coming to you from my Carrollton recording studio, where I spend time writing and producing commercials for my radio endorsement clients, as well as my private freelance clients. I'd like the opportunity to help you sell more books with a commercial like this and get listeners of Dear Texas Radio excited about your title, all at a special introductory price. Available to members of the Texas Association of Authors. Call or text 214-762-1942. That's 214-762-1942.
Authors, are you looking for the perfect place to publish your new ebooks? Look no further than ebg247.com/authors-services. Let us help with editing, cover designs, web banner designs, even formatting and conversion. Our professional services can take your book from no sales to today's top seller. That's ebg247.com/authors-services. Don't go it alone. Let us handle everything for you. At EBG, you always get a quality service, all at an everyday affordable price. It's the web's best place to create your new ebook.
You are listening to Dear Texas Radio, a program of Dear Texas Read and sponsored by Texas Authors Incorporated. If you would like to ask today's guest author a question, please do so on Twitter using the hashtag Dear Texas Radio. However, not all questions will be answered during the show. Now sit back and enjoy listening to today's show and learn about a Texas author and their books.
And welcome back to Dear Texas Radio. This is your host, B. Allen Bourgeois. We hope you are enjoying today's show. And before we continue on to the other books that Jan has written, there is a question from Twitter that I do want to ask Jan. And the question is, will you be adding a coloring book to your as a companion to this already fabulous poetry book, as they ask?
I don't know. It's been suggested a time or two, and I've thought about it. I just haven't moved forward on that thought. So I don't know. I might.
Okay. Well, with that, let's go on to your other items that you have won awards for. And if I remember correctly, Flowers and Stone is the first book of a series of what has been classified as biography fiction. So let's start with, first off, what does biography fiction mean for you?
You know, when I decided that it had to be me that told the story, I kept thinking somebody else would come along and do it. For years I thought that. I thought my sister would do it, and she just flat out said, no, this is your story, not mine. So when I decided that it had to be me, and I began the process of, you know, going to creative writing classes and trying to learn the craft. I started out trying to write it in first person with the I's and you and me, and I couldn't do it because it is such a personal story. So I created fictional characters to tell the story through, and that allowed me the freedom to back away and separate from it and let the story unfold through these characters. So it is biographical in that all of the things in the books are true, that they did happen, the events did happen. The fiction part is the characters, and there were some conversations and dialogue that I was not present for, wasn't there when it happened, so I had to make up the dialogue. So there is a little bit of fiction, but the events are all true.
Now, the events are about you and your husband, how you guys met, and everything that evolves from that point on all the way up to his death, correct?
Right, that's correct.
Your story's so interesting.
A lot of people ask me, did you write these stories as a tribute to him? And that answer is very quickly, no, I did not. I wrote them because this story just needed to be told. The old saying, truth is stranger than fiction, really applies here, because I was 19 years old. I'm going to talk in the characters' voices. Darlena Flowers was 19 years old when she met Luke Stone in Abilene in an after-hours nightclub that had lost their liquor license for serving to minors. She wasn't old enough to go into the bars, so this was where she could hang out. And he and his band came in one night after they had finished playing, and she waited on their table. And there was just something. There was just something. It was like, I don't know. I mean, it's a cliche, but like a moth to the flame. And it was the beginning of the love story. And even though there was everything in the world against it ever amounting to anything more than a fling, it stood the test of time because it was more than that. And so there was a huge age difference for starters. He had like 4 kids, and I mean, he was 35 years old and had lived life and had been a lifetime musician, playing music, going up and down the road. So the first book is a love story. It is the beginning of how it all started, and it is a love story. And when I advertise it as a love story so hot the pages sizzle.
And then you follow it up with your second one. And just to be clear, the first one title was
Flowers and Stone, because and I named it for their names, Darlena Flowers and Luke Stone, and it also described their personalities. So the Flowers and Stone it just fit.
Okay. Go on.
So
you're on a roll. Keep going.
So that book does not have a happy ending. And it ends with Luke Stone being arrested and convicted on 2 counts of armed bank robbery and sentenced to 25 and 50 years to be served consecutively in prison. It was a crime that he had not committed, but because he would not tell them what he knew about it, and he did know about it, but he would say and he would swear it over and over, I'm not a rat, so I will not tell. And so because of that, then he got the full sentence and served 15 years of that sentence before he could get paroled. So the second book is the prison years. And again, you know, I didn't want to focus on how bad prison is because we all know it's not a nice place to be. What I wanted to focus on was how these 2 souls dealt with the separation and also how he dealt with the incarceration and learning to do and think positive, and he accomplished some amazing things from behind bars. He built a recording studio in Leavenworth Prison, which was the only recording studio inside a federal prison ever. It's never been done since then or before, and managed to put out a good bit of music out of that studio. And so that's in that book. Another thing that's in the prison book that's kind of unique and different, and it leads to the connection with the poetry book, but he had worked on the outside with Willie Nelson, and they had a friendship, and it continued. And at one point, Willie commissioned him to draw an album cover for him. And I have all of the letters. I have everything that proves that this is authentic. I have all of the communication back and forth. And so he did. He did all the artwork for this album cover, and then the album never got released because about the time they were ready to start working on it was when IRS started looking at Willie, and his lawyers advised him that it would not be a good idea to have any association with a convict. So the album never came out. So I used that artwork on the cover of the second book. So that book does have a happy ending, and it leads into the third book, which is when he is released from prison and comes home, and we actually get married. So all this time.
Now, before you go any further, unfortunately, we have just a couple minutes left, so I don't want to cut you off too much. Let's start with the basics. Where can people find your books?
They can find my books any and everywhere. They can find my books through your website in the bookstore at Texas Authors. They can find them on Amazon, my own website. If you want autographed copies, get them from my website. I'm going to be running some Christmas specials and some bundling that will make them very affordable. And so they are available anywhere books can be bought.
Okay. And that also includes the CDs that you have for each of the books, correct?
Yes. That's the other thing that we haven't even mentioned, and I'll mention real quickly that I did release a music CD with each book that matches the time period of that story, and it's original music.
Okay. And that's how many CD albums?
I have
is that
4.
Just the 4, or is there 5?
I have 5, but there's just one with each book. The poetry book does not have a CD that goes with it.
Okay. So the album, Rick Sikes and the Rhythm Rebels, that is a previous collection of music that Rick had done?
Uh-huh. That CD, the early recordings, I took the music off of 45 RPM records and had it mastered and turned into a CD.
Great. Okay. And just so everybody knows, the other 2 books is Home Outlaw, as she was mentioning, it's when they got married finally. And then the 4th book is Till Death Do Us Part. Real shortly, like 30 seconds, what's that one about?
That book is not about death. It's all about living and about grabbing each moment of life, because when you get to that point that you know it's short, you got to grab it. And I want to mention, too, just real quickly, my website is jansikes.com.
Okay. And with that, we are done. Thank you very much, Jan, for being on the show. We wish you the best of luck.
Oh, thank you. It was my pleasure, Alan.
Thank you for listening to Dear Texas Radio, where we encourage everyone to drop everything and read a great book by a Texas author. More information about this show or any of our shows from the past years can be found at radio.deartexas.info. That's radio.deartexas.info. I'm Randy James, your announcer for Dear Texas Radio.